Good morning, everyone. We're going to begin in song. Please rise in body and spirit to sing Our World is One World, number 134. Our opening words this morning are by the Reverend Angela Herrera. This is a prayer for all the travelers, for the ones who start out in beauty, who fall from grace, who step gingerly looking for the way back, and for those who are born into the margins, who travel from one liminal space to another, crossing boundaries in search of center. This is a prayer for the one whose births are passing from darkness to darkness, who all their lives are drawn toward the light and keep moving. And for those whose journeys are a winding road that begins and ends in the same place, though only when the journey is completed do they finally know where they are. For all the travelers, young and old, aching and joyful, weary and full of life, the ones who are here and the ones who are not here, the ones who are like you and they're all like you, and the ones who are different, for in some ways we each travel alone. This is a prayer for traveling mercies and sure-footedness, for clear vision, for bread, for your body and spirit, for water, for your safe arrival, and for everyone you see along the way. We are here this morning to see each other along the way. We are here this morning as travelers together in this road of life, coming to this place, this moment, this Unitarian Society of Santa Barbara on this Sunday. Together in this room and online in our online sanctuary, we are so glad that you have chosen to spend this time in community this morning. I'm the Reverend Julia Hamilton. My pronouns are she, her, and I am delighted to welcome you here this morning into this loving community of seekers where we strive to live with integrity, nurture wonder, and inspire the actions that transform us and transform the world. We have a lot going on here at the Unitarian Society beyond Sunday morning, so if you're visiting with us this morning, friends, family, near and far, we would love to get to know you and keep you connected to this community. So please stop by our welcome table, sign in online. If you're joining us in the chat, this is how you can sort of put on your virtual name tag to join us. And on the second Sunday of every month, which is this Sunday, we have a newcomer orientation in the office right across the courtyard. So if you'd like to know more about the congregation, perhaps meet some other newcomers, go ahead and stop by in the office, visit Angie and some folks from our membership team, and we would love to welcome you. And if you feel like this might be your spiritual home, if you've been attending for a while and have decided that the Unitarian Society of Santa Barbara is where you want to be, we would love to welcome you into membership in this congregation. And you can sign the membership book at the welcome table, where we will help connect you to the ongoing life of this community. We have a lot of things coming up this week. In fact, I think every single day you could do something for yourself and the world here at the Unitarian Society. So take a look at that insert in your order of service. Take a look at that Friday email. We have our Taizé service, which is a contemplative once-a-month evening service, candlelight, simple songs, silence, a wonderful opportunity to take a breath in a busy world, because I don't know about y'all, but whew, it has been a week. And I can use that Taizé service. We have our Contemporary Issues Forum, very excited to be hosting the Dean of Santa Barbara City College on Wednesday here this evening to talk about what's going on in education in our community, which is sure to be a stimulating conversation. You can sing with our community choir on Monday. We have our young adults group meeting on Thursday. Just keep up with what's going on here, because this is a place where you can invest your spirit to make a difference. I am so glad you are here with us. So let's take a breath now. Whew. And arrive. Bring yourself fully here to this moment, to this time together, as we ring our bell and let the sound connect us.
Good morning. If you're joining us in our online sanctuary and would like to participate, please type into the chat, "Chalice is lit," and the name of your street or town. While we cannot see the flames, we know they're burning bright throughout our far-flung community. Joining us to light the chalice this morning is Leland Reardon, one of the youth who traveled across the border to the La Cobina shelter. And the words for this morning's chalice lighting are by author and Unitarian minister Edward Everett Hale. And these words have special resonance for the people who've made the trip to La Cobina. I am only one, but still I am one. I cannot do everything, but still I can do something. And because I cannot do everything, I will not refuse to do the something I can do. We recognize someone or something that has made our world a better, safer, and more loving place. This week, as our collective choice for the one good thing, I want to draw our attention to Separated, a heart-wrenching documentary about an immigration policy of the first Trump administration that led to the forcible separation of thousands of families, supposedly designed to, quote, deter migrants from making the perilous journey north in hopes of a life free from poverty and fear. The policy was nothing short of cruel and inhumane, as it ripped children from their parents' arms. Based on the book by NBC News reporter Jacob Soboroff, Separated also calls out the few brave individuals who attempted to circumvent the orders of their superiors and to shine a light on these terrible policies. Winner of the Fund for Santa Barbara Social Justice Award at this year's film festival, the documentary fortunately is streaming on a number of different platforms. And as you listen to our friends this morning reflect on their experiences at the La Cobina shelter, think about Separated and what each of us might do individually and collectively to ensure that family separation will never again become the cornerstone of our nation's immigration policies. Although this portion of the service is called One Good Thing, I can't resist adding a second noteworthy event. Yesterday, the sanctuary and parish hall were filled to overflowing and hundreds of people were in the courtyard and on the streets to participate in a Stop the Coup program organized by Indivisible Santa Barbara. The resistance is alive and it is well in our community.
Please join us again in song. Let us rise in body and spirit to sing number 112, Do You Hear?
Around here, and my pronouns are she, her. Last month, an interfaith, multi-generational group of Unitarian Universalists, Episcopalians, and Catholics came together for a service trip to La Cobina Posada migrant shelter in Mexicali, Mexico. This is the 4th year members of our congregation have participated in this interfaith trip. We are invited on this trip and guided by Sister Suzanne Jabro, the Chief Inviter and Crossover Guide, that's her title, of Border Compassion, an organization whose mission is to invite faith communities to cross over at the border to offer a compassionate humanitarian response to families living at the Posada del Migrante shelter, which houses up to 300 people. There were about 80 people living there when we were there this year. Since that first year, I thought a lot about why we go on this trip, and I've come up with 3 main reasons. We go to provide financial and material support for the shelter, to bear loving witness to the stories of the migrants living there, and to be changed personally by the experience. We arrived in Calexico, California on Friday night in time for a late dinner. On Saturday morning, we met Sister Suzanne for breakfast in our hotel and talked about the day ahead. We divided into groups and took cabs to the border, each of us pulling a heavy suitcase full of art supplies, games, and other activities for the kids. At the US-Mexico border, we left our cabs and walked across. Border agents opened a couple of the suitcases for a cursory inspection. When we reached the Mexico side, we hopped into cabs again for the short ride to the shelter. We got right to work when we arrived and spent the day coloring, painting, making God's eyes with the children. We played cards, games, parachute games, and pato pato ganzo, also known as duck duck goose, and we learned new games from some of the residents. Adults shared their stories with the Spanish speakers in our groups, and our partners from the Church of the Beatitudes taught capacitar movements to help them manage the stress in their bodies. We ate lunch together, sang together, prayed together, and finished the day with a piñata. Children and youth at the shelter are not able to go to school. Other than a weekly visit from an English tutor and visits from faith groups, there are no organized activities available to them. On this trip, we also visited a graveyard. In Holtville, California, there is a cemetery that includes the unmarked graves of migrants who died in the California desert. We lit candles, said prayers, and left flowers for the people buried there. We were saddened to find that even in a cemetery, there was a wall separating us. The people we met at the shelter are from Mexico, Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala. They have come to the shelter because it was not safe for them at home. They were hoping to come to our country. You'll be learning more about our trip throughout this service, but right now, I'd like to invite Theo Patterson, the Director of Children and Youth at Trinity Episcopal Church around the corner, to share a story. Kids, come on up and join Theo. I know you're back there, some of you.
Come on down, come on down.
So I'm going to just say this as you're coming up. The people we met at the shelter are called migrants. That means they are migrating or moving from one place to another. And Theo is going to tell us a very old story from the Christian tradition about some migrants whose names you might recognize.
Thank you, Charla. Are you guys ready? All right, let's get started. Mary held her baby close as she walked along the sandy path. They had already been walking for days, and she was so tired. The wind was cold, and she tucked the soft cloth around little Jesus' face to keep him warm. Jesus smiled softly in his mother's warm embrace. Joseph, her husband, walked in front of her, tapping his wooden staff on the ground with each step. She was thankful that he was with them. The only sounds were the waves crashing on one side and the soft crunch of their footsteps on the other. It was a lonely journey and a long way from the familiar sights and sounds of home. Home. What did home even mean now? They had left their old home in the middle of the night. There had been no time to pack much, just some clothes and food, no time to say goodbye to their family and friends, no time to wait and see if things would get better. The king had made a terrible rule, and every baby boy under 2 years old was in danger. It was so scary. Mary and Joseph knew they had to leave quickly to keep Jesus safe, and so they started the long trip to a faraway land, Egypt. The night sky was full of bright, twinkling stars. There were so many of them that they were impossible to count. Mary looked up and thought about the special words that people had said about Jesus. So many people had said kind things about him that had made her heart warm. He was supposed to bring hope to the world. But right now, he was just a small baby sleeping in her arms as they ran away from danger. Could this really be the same baby boy that all of those people had spoken nice things about back home? As the sun began to rise, the land started to change. The birds began to chirp, and the warm light covered everything with a bright glow. Mary felt a little more hopeful. Maybe everything would be okay after all. Palm trees stood tall in the distance, and soon they found a small pool of water. Joseph hadn't talked to her much throughout the night, but as they stopped at the small pool, he kindly reassured Mary that he was right there with her and that they would reach safety for their son. It was a long road, but Mary and Joseph were very brave. And they knew that they would do anything and everything to protect their son from danger. Joseph filled their water pouches in the spring, and Mary rocked Jesus, humming a lullaby. For a moment, they rested, but then they knew they had to keep going. Later that day, as the sun rose higher in the sky, the path they were on wound down into a small valley that blocked their view of the ocean. The sea breeze and salty air, which had been with them for most of the journey so far, were no longer there. The small family walked through a narrow path in the center of the valley between two tall cliffs. And suddenly, from behind some big rocks, 3 rough-looking men stepped out in front of them. Mary's eyes widened in fear. One even held a sharp knife. "Give us what you have," one of them shouted. Joseph stood in front of Mary and Jesus, trying to block them from the dangerous men. "We don't have much at all," he said calmly. "Just some bread and water and the clothes on our backs." The men sneered. "Then we'll take your donkey." Mary let out a small gasp. Their donkey had been their faithful companion for years, even helping carry Mary to Bethlehem when she was pregnant with Jesus. Tears began to well in her eyes at the thought of losing this dear friend. But before anything else could happen, a loud horn echoed through the rocky cliffs where the family had been stopped. The bandits' eyes grew wide with fear, and they ran away before Joseph or Mary even had a chance to respond to them about the donkey. A moment later, Roman soldiers marched towards them, their metal armor clinking as they walked. Mary's heart pounded. She was glad that the bandits were gone, but these soldiers could be even scarier. Would they notice Jesus? Would they know about the king's terrible rule? A tall soldier pointed at Joseph. "You, carry our bags." Joseph glanced at Mary before stepping forward. The soldiers piled heavy packs onto his back, causing him to stumble. Mary's heart ached for him, but she was also relieved. They didn't say anything about Jesus, and maybe they hadn't even noticed the baby at all. For a mile, Joseph carried the heavy packs while Mary walked quietly behind him. She felt tired, afraid. Would the soldiers hurt them if Joseph couldn't keep carrying their packs? What if she wasn't strong enough to keep going? What if they never found a safe place? What if she should have just maybe stayed behind instead? Then baby Jesus stirred in her arms. Of course she couldn't have stayed behind. He was too special to take that risk. Mary held him closer and whispered, "You deserve more than this." Finally, the soldiers let Joseph go. He took Mary's hand and they kept walking. Egypt was still far away, but they had hope. They would keep going. They would keep Jesus safe, no matter what. Thank you.
Thank you, Theo. And we'll sing our children out now.
We hold you in our love as you go, as you go. May your heart be at peace as you go, to nurture the spark of your precious love. We hold you in our love as you go.
Some of you are already looking up at the screen. I don't know if it's started yet, but we are going to share some slides from our trip now, and Heather will accompany us as we take a little journey on our trip to La Cobina.
We've invited the youth who went on the trip to share a few words about their experiences. We have our youth from Santa Barbara here today, from the Unitarian Society here today, and we have the Trinity youth on a video who were not able to be here this morning but wanted to share a few things. However, we had some sound issues this morning with the video, so we're going to see if it'll play and if we can hear it, and if not, we will share it out at a later date. John, is the Trinity video playing? Let's see. No sound. We will find a way to share the reflections from the Trinity youth after the service, but I'd like to invite our three youth to come forward to share some of their experiences.
I'm Leland Riordan. My most favorite memory of this trip so far is when we did Pato Pato Ganzo. Because Duck Duck Goose, how you have to go around in the circle, you're not allowed to cut through the circle. They would just jump over the circle after they said that you're the goose. And then after, if they got tagged, the person that got tagged by the goose would make the person that tagged them the goose again. So then it would be this treacherous circle of going back and forth, hoping not to get hit in the head when they jumped over you. And then we decided to play freeze tag, or tag, which, give or take, everyone was trying to go for us, and we were trying to go for them. Or then I would get tagged, and then I'd tag them back immediately, and then it would go like that for 8 minutes nonstop. Yeah, it's pretty chaotic.
Hello. Hello, my name is Quinn Hartman, and this was my third trip to the migrant shelter. But this year we went to the cemetery for the first time. The cemetery is the largest cemetery for migrants, unidentified migrants west of the Mississippi, and the thing that most stuck out to me about the trip was when we went to the cemetery, not only did they have a fence up, but they also made it so that we couldn't see into the part where all the migrants were. And the only signs on that part of the cemetery said no trespassing. They even stopped burying people in that cemetery when they realized that it was cheaper to cremate them. And what was the last point? And they wouldn't even let people into that part of the cemetery for Dia de los Muertos. That going to the cemetery was the part of the trip that stuck out to me the most this time. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Cassia Shive Hamilton. As important as it is to talk about what we do when we go on this trip, it's just as important to say why. We do not go just to give something, but to show that there are people who will stand up for them. We go for friendship, the friendship that both sides receive. We go for joy, and the amount of joy that the people have and share with us at the shelter. And lastly, we go for love. The love that we raise and share, that we receive and share with stories and games with tag, with music and art, and with the love that they hold in their hearts that has been carried for the miles of their journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Abby. Eliza.
One thing that struck me was when we did the pinatas after, they gave us each bags of goodies to take home with us, and they were just sweets. And and I got struck by the generosity because they didn't have much, but they still tried to treat us as guests.
Thank you, Eliza. Kata.
So one thing that shocked me was also kind of like Eliza's, is how we were in their rooms, like when they showed us their rooms, and it wasn't very clean or like organized, but they still were so like very positive and just cared so much that we were there, and they just like always try to be positive and stuff.
Thank you, Kata. Mateo.
So when we brought our group across the border, and then when we came into Mexicali, you could tell that we were in a different country. And there was a bunch of more honking, and there was a lot more yelling, and like a bunch more people were like yelling. It was just different there. But it was also like more exciting, partially because like we were in a different country. But yeah, it was eye-opening.
Thank you, Mateo. Claire.
So this is my second time on the Mexicali trip, and I spent a lot of time comparing how I felt the first time to the second time, and how the experience is one that I think everyone should experience. Not only once, but twice, because on my second trip, I was able to learn a lot more personally about each person there. And not only that, I think I was able to, instead of just rushing out trying to do something, I was able to center, not only care for them more, but focus on how it was affecting me too at the same time.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you, everyone.
I now welcome up Mimi and Rory to share some of their experiences.
Good morning, all. Mimi and I are going to be doing sort of a tag team presentation here. And this was our first trip to La Cobina, and presumably won't be the last. But the primary purpose, in my mind, of the trip was to bear witness to the people who are at the border, trying to come across, trying to survive. Our trip started out here in the parking lot with the youth group, and one was really impressed with the joy, the anticipation, and the shared experiences that were already beginning from those who had been on the trip before. As we drove and as we arrived, the mood became a little more somber, and there was a sense of seriousness, of purpose, as we gathered with the suitcases the next morning and waited for the series of taxis to cross the border.
I wanted to share a little bit about the suitcase that I packed with. It was quite an experience for me going through generations of art supplies and items that I wanted to share with the residents at La Cobina. I actually took the watercolors that Diane Platt had left for me when she left here. You may remember she was a member, left a couple of years ago. So I took Diana with me, and I had 12 knitted hats that many were worked on by Susan Dempsey and Claire Chitello. So those items are on the heads, those knitted hats are on the heads of some of the residents in Mexicali. The other thing I wanted to share was that my ride with the taxi driver. I like to sit up front with the taxi driver so I can talk to them. And our driver, Alberto, was born and raised and lived all his life in Mexicali, and has been driving back and forth between Calexico, which is the U.S. side, and Mexicali, the Mexico side of this large city, which was really just one city, and families live on either side and have been going back and forth for generations. And he's been driving that route for 30 years. I'll let Rory continue.
Walking through the physical barriers at Calexico and Mexicali, you are aware of this great separation of sameness. There's a fence that divides the heart of this city. On the Mexican side, we took taxis to La Cobina, about a mile into Mexicali, and were greeted with the warmth from Sister Susanna. There, the people in the shelter presented a variety of moods. Small children playing joyfully and happily, some engaging, some not. Older children, the contemporaries of our youth groups, were more reserved and cautious. And the adults were happy to be there, but tired, anxious. They told stories of their journeys, the anxieties of their immediate future. At that point, we were on the 18th and 19th of January, one day before the inauguration. And already, appointments for interviews with the Customs and Border Protection were being canceled and postponed later into February this month. And as we all know now, those have been canceled permanently. You saw the slides of the arts and crafts, the lunch of spaghetti, pizza, and sodas. There was an open-air kitchen with large pots for the surge of residents that have been there and that probably are to come. There were the cats. You saw some in the pictures. And then, of course, Pato Pato Ganso. The piñata and our departure. And Mimi will come back and talk about the blessings.
Well, I also wanted to share just a little bit about when I got there. My many years of being a teacher might have motivated me to grab a stack of something that I could write people's names on in a black marker, and I started going around writing people's names and putting them on. I put a name tag on myself, and of course, as I did this, I wanted to hear their stories, and so that was very, very touching. I remember a man who really wanted to tell me how he was not a criminal. He was just a hard worker who wanted to help and take care of his family. And I remember Juan, who had lived in the U.S. for 25 years, was married to a U.S. citizen, and got caught up in a raid one day, and he found himself back across the border. Unfortunately, he had been previously deported, so you could see great sadness on his face. He probably will never be able to come back. So he was looking forward to hopefully having his wife come to Ensenada, where they might be able to live together again. Then I wanted to tell you the part that was very touching to me. There was a woman there named Jane, and she was a bishop. And she selected 4 of us who spoke Spanish to bless the residents of La Cobina. they needed to be blessed. And I said, but I'm not Catholic. I don't know about doing blessings. And she said, you're here, and they need to be blessed. So I had an assistant, and I assumed the other three, Rory was one, and then the other two drivers, Sean and Robin, were the other, making up the four of us, and we were like in the four directions, and people lined up in front of us, and I had an assistant with a little cup of oil, and I was to dip my thumb in the oil and put it on the forehead and say, que Dios te bendiga con su amor. And then I put my hands on their shoulders and said, que Dios te guarda con su poder. And then I put my hands on their breastbone and said, que nuestro amor vaya contigo en su viaje. Basically, may God bless you with his love, with his power. May he protect you, and may our love go with you. And then the bishop said, we all need to bless one another. So I'm thinking about those people and how we all need to be blessed, but I've been thinking a lot about them and wondering about what's going on next in their lives with the changes that we know are happening. So I think that's it for me.
The ride back to the border, crossing through Mexicali, you see the poverty, but you also see hope. And walking through the line, there was a slide of that. And something that I wish was up now, but as you look at the line of people waiting at the pedestrian crossing, you see in the background the building that we're about to enter, and then above it, the wall that goes through the city. It's a large copper-colored fence. And if any of you are interested, after the service, let me show you my pictures that I have on my phone. Taxi back to the Hamilton Inn in Calexico. We shared reflections with one another and had dinner. But the next important point, and the final thing I'm going to talk about, was the cemetery. Very moving. Even in death, there was a wall separating the U.S. Deceased from the undocumented, unnamed migrants who were simply there as John Doe, Jane Doe, and Baby Doe. Thank you.
We go to the border. I think you can hear from what everyone said. We go to the border to be changed. Changed by the dogged, loving determination of Sister Suzanne and Border Compassion to provide a safe and welcoming space for those seeking shelter. Changed by the friendships that develop across congregations. Changed by the unmarked graves in a dirt field separated from us by yet another wall. And most of all, changed by the families we met at the shelter whose names and faces and stories we carry with us. Central to our mission is a sacred obligation to bear witness to the experiences of the migrants living in the shelter, to listen with our hearts. Their stories are not easy to hear. Many are fleeing violence and oppression. Some have witnessed the killing of loved ones or have been threatened with death themselves. They arrive at La Cobina carrying the kind of trauma most of us can only imagine. And yet we are in awe of their courage and resilience, their capacity to welcome us, to step up and care for each other's children, and to find joy in these difficult circumstances. It was heartbreaking to say goodbye this year, 2 days before the presidential inauguration, knowing they were stranded at the shelter now with no place to go and little hope, and knowing they might soon be joined by deportees. We only spent a few hours with the people we met at La Cobina, but we carried their stories back across the border with us. And we have an obligation to share these stories, especially now that the U.S. has slammed the door on these most vulnerable people. Because they can't speak for themselves, we are called to make sure they are heard. We invite you to join us in a responsive prayer for the migrants we met.
Mimi spoke about our ability to bless one another and be blessings to each other. They blessed us with their stories, and we continue that by lifting up these prayers. So as we pray for mercy and safety for these families, after Charla and Theo read each name, I invite us all to respond together, "We hold you in our hearts." And if you want to put your hand over your heart, or however it is that you want to settle yourself into this moment of prayer together.
For Rosa and her grandchildren, David and Arlette from Honduras, who hope to reunite with the children's parents in the U.S. Their Customs and Border Patrol appointment was scheduled for February. We hold you in our hearts.
For Denise and her daughter Camila from Mazatlan fleeing the cartels, we hold you in our hearts.
For Elizabeth and her 3 grandchildren, whose parents were killed by the cartels, their murders witnessed by one of the children when she was under 10 years old. We hold you in our hearts.
For Oscar and his son Jefferson, who fled El Salvador. They had a flight from Oaxaca but were robbed of all of their money just outside the Oaxaca airport. We hold you in our hearts.
For 8-year-old Isaias and his 12-year-old brother Jesse from Guatemala, their mother Maria was in the hospital for gallbladder surgery. And for Denise, another mother at the shelter, who was taking care of the boys along with her own children. We hold you in our hearts.
For Juan from Bakersfield, who was recently deported after having lived in the U.S. for 25 years.
We hold you in our hearts. For Jocelyn and her 2 children from Guatemala, who lived at the nearby women's shelter. We hold you in our hearts.
For Araceli and her son from El Salvador, living in the nearby women's shelter.
We hold you in our hearts. For Yasmin from Guatemala, traveling with her grandmother. We hold you in our hearts.
For Dulce, a former telecommunications representative from Guatemala, who had an appointment scheduled with CBP for the last week in January.
We hold you in our hearts. For Pedro from Mexico, who witnessed the murder of 2 traveling companions. We hold you in our hearts.
And for the Venezuelan family with 5 children who stopped by the shelter while we were there, intent on trying to cross the border without an appointment. We hold you in our hearts.
We extend our prayer for mercy to those whose names and stories we did not hear, to those who fell into despair when their appointments with Customs and Border Patrol were abruptly canceled, and for members of our own community here in Santa Barbara who now live in fear of ICE raids and families being torn apart by deportation, for immigrants all over the U.S. who are no longer safe.
We hold you in our hearts. We vow to keep telling these stories until all who seek safe harbor find a loving community that embraces them. We hold you in our hearts.
May it be so. Blessed be, and amen.
Every Sunday, the Unitarian Society donates 25% of the offering to support special projects and community partners that share our deepest values. This month, we're sharing our offering with PFLAG Santa Barbara. For more than 50 years, nationwide PFLAG has provided peer-to-peer support and a wide range of resources to help families support, affirm, and advocate on behalf of their LGBTQ+ loved ones. To state the depressingly obvious, PFLAG services are needed today to a degree not witnessed since the organization began. Please give as generously as you can to ensure that PFLAG can continue its life-saving and soul-saving work. For those of you at home, the text to give number appears on your screen. And please join with me in saying the affirmation of gratitude and giving. Let us be grateful when we are able to give, for many do not have that privilege. Let us be grateful for those who share their gifts with us, for we are enriched by their giving. And let us be grateful even for our needs, so that we may learn from the generosity of others.
I'd like to invite those who went on the trip to come join in with the choir here. We're doing Abre la Puerta, so you'll know. As you all know, our trip across the border is an interfaith trip. We traveled with our partners from Trinity Episcopal Church and the Church of the Beatitudes. We are stronger for these connections. Together, we can do more to support the shelter than we can alone. More money, more helping hands, more people to listen, more joy and compassion to bring. The teachings and values of our respective faith traditions guide each of us, but underlying any differences in our beliefs is the compassion and love that is foundational to all of our faith traditions. We share stories, chalice lightings, and prayers with each other, and we learn that what binds us and the people we meet in Mexicali is much stronger than what separates us. Love knows no borders. Last year, Ruby, one of the youth from Trinity who unfortunately was not able to join us this year, taught us and the migrants a song called Abre la Puerta, Open the Door. We sang it at the shelter again this year. This song, written by local singer-songwriter Glenn Phillips, has become a theme song for our annual La Cobina trip.
Abre la puerta, abre la puerta. Abre la puerta.
So as we bring our service to a close, I've been tasked with the job of trying to tie it all together. I don't know about you, but trying to tie things all together these days has been a full-time job, right? Trying to connect the dots between the stories that we heard, the lives, the human lives that are being impacted daily in our world. Trying to connect those dots to the executive orders and confirmation hearings and agency closures and immigration raids, this fire hose over these past few days. Well, pretty soon when you try to describe it, you start to sound like a conspiracy theorist, right? With red string and a bulletin board and pictures and maps, some kind of grand unified theory must emerge from this chaos. This is all really happening. And because I believe that we are interdependent and that what happens in one place to one person or one group of people, well, it doesn't stay isolated. It connects us, all of us eventually. And because I believe in this fundamental interdependence, because we believe in this fundamental interdependence, it's important to do that work of trying to connect those dots, to share those stories, to see how they fit into a larger whole. So I've been trying to connect those dots, and what started to emerge, because at first I thought I was kind of creating this conspiracy of cruelty, right? This map of all the places where hurt and suffering are happening in the world. But what started to emerge was a different pattern, not of cruelty, but of care. An interdependent network of love and kindness that is also the reality, that is also happening right here and right now. And I know it may be hard to see sometimes with the brutality and the chaos of this moment, but it's there. That interdependent network of care and kindness, that conspiracy of love and justice is there too. And this morning was an attempt to surface that care and kindness and compassion that exists in this world, that always will. It connects us here to the folks who are living in La Cobina, who are striving for a better life. It connects us to the work we're doing here in this community to keep our communities safe. All of the Know Your Rights workshops, all of the bystander intervention trainings, all of the partnerships with the 805 UndocuFund and the Immigrant Legal Defense Center and the people who we've been working with for years. These relationships are just as real and, dare I say, stronger than any of the cruelty that can be thrown our way. And it works. Those red cards that you got in your order of service today, and if you're joining us online, you can Google "red cards know your rights" and you'll find downloadable versions. Those red cards that help teach people what their rights are as human beings in our society, those matter. There was just a statement last week from ICE operations in Chicago that they were frustrated because people were too well versed in their legal rights. And the fear and intimidation tactics that they were used to using weren't working anymore. Because for months, the community had been teaching people how to stand up together, how to stand in their power and their truth and claim their human rights in our community. And it worked. They sent out 100 agents all day, and I think arrested 2 people in Chicago on one day. This work matters. This work makes a difference. This work cannot solve everything, but it is harm reduction right now, and it is what we are leaning into. And I am so proud of that network of love and justice that is emerging. So maybe I am a conspiracy theorist, but it's a conspiracy of compassion that I am interested in, and I hope you will all be part of my co-conspirators in this work. Because as we are seeing more and more, it is not just us. It is thousands, it is millions of people in this nation who do not accept hate and fear as the final word and who will fight for what we love. We are here and we are not alone, and we are strengthened by our community. Thank you to everyone who made this trip possible, the travelers, those of us here who supported this, those of us who are online who support this work. We will continue. Onward, my friends. Let us sing together one more time. We're going to close with number 95, "There is More Love." Please rise in body and spirit. So stay right where you are, and if you want to put your hands over your heart or hold hands with someone next to you, if you have permission to do that from them, or hold your hands open wherever you are, however it is you get connected to that sense of being part of something larger, part of a loving community that extends beyond these walls. And as you go out into this beautiful and heartbreaking world, may the light of love shine upon you, out from within you, be gracious unto you, and bring you peace. For this is the day we are given. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. And let us call out a blessing.
Call